It is with great pleasure and honor that I want to introduce to you a dear friend, a fellow trade unionist and activist, a leader in Canada, Brother Ken Lewenza.
Welcome, delegates. Welcome, CEP. Before my opening address, I'd like to make a few comments. First of all, I want to say for my colleagues in the labour movement, thank you for your activism. Thank you for your bonds of solidarity. I see Denny Lemelin there representing Canadian postal workers that have been to hell and back in the last year and needs a united union like CEP and CAW to join with them in solidarity in defense of their members. I see my colleague and friend, Paul Moyse from the Canadian Union of Public Workers. And brothers and sisters, I know he addressed the delegates yesterday, but defending public sector workers in partnership, in solidarity, in friendship with one another, in defense of public services and those that provide those services through our great unions. I want to say to Paul Moyse, congratulations for good work. Congratulations for your determination, and congratulations for winning justice for your members day in and day out. I see another colleague. I had the wonderful opportunity to come to this great country, Quebec, and in the CAW, quite frankly, that's how we define Quebec. I want to say to my friend, the President of the United Steelworkers of America, that I joined the Quebec director, Jean-Pierre Fortin, and thousands of people in Alma, Quebec, as we defended workers at Rio Tinto that was locked out by their employer and subsidized by the government, quite frankly, during that period of lockout. And for workers to win justice in a struggle against a multinational corporation. Yes, it was the determination of the United Steelworkers of America. Yes, it was a determination of the leadership and the provincial labour movement in the province of Quebec, but it was the labour movement coming together in one, in defense of workers. Whether you're a steel worker, a public sector worker, a CEP worker, the facts of the matter is a worker's a worker. And I want to say to Ken Newman, who settled that lockout with a 90% ratification of the collective agreement, Ken Newman, to the steelworkers, congratulations for a job well done against Rio Tinto. Brothers and sisters, it's a great honor that I speak to you today, and I want to say in advance, I don't look at notes. I speak from my heart. The reality is, brothers and sisters, I want to extend my appreciation to the National Executive Board of the CAW that are here today for their ongoing vote of confidence. The ongoing vote of confidence and unanimous decision to form a new union, to look at a new union. And then our National Executive Board took that to each province, to each municipality, to each local union, and ultimately got the unanimous support of the delegates from the CAW at our last convention. Brothers and sisters, I want to thank the NEB that are here today. I want to thank the Process Committee for their incredible work under the leadership of Gaetan and Peter. I want to thank you all for your volunteer spirit and your acts of solidarity, and mostly for your acts of unselfishness as we try to build a movement that's going to build confidence in our members and take on the enemy day in and day out. And there's a lot of enemies that we face in today's work environment. I want to acknowledge the friendship with David Coles. The reality is CEP and CAW's had a historically strong relationship. The reality is when a worker is being injured, regardless of what affiliate it represents, we come together in that arms of solidarity and friendship and advice of one another. And in the last couple of years since I've been the president of the CAW, I've tried to build relationships with the Canadian Labour Congress under the leadership of Ken Georgetti and Hassan Youssef. I've tried to build relationships with the leadership of all of the unions. But there's been a relationship that's been special in the last couple of years, and that's the one with David Coles. And we do take time outside of the Canadian Labour Congress meetings to talk about issues, to talk about the importance of workers, talk about their contribution to society, and talk about how we best represent our combined membership. And it was as a result of those conversations that we were able to come together today and make a recommendation to both CAW and CEP that we form a national Canadian union that represents the interests of our members. So David Coles, I want to thank you for your leadership and your friendship. Thank you very much. So brothers and sisters, why are we here? We're here because we're trade unionists first. Brothers and sisters, we're here because we recognize the incredible struggle that workers face day in and day out. There's nobody in this room that hasn't experienced some hardship in representing their members. There's nobody in this room that haven't looked in the mirror and felt that sense of frustration, that sense of desperation on whether we're moving the workers' agenda quicker than we'd like to. There's nobody in this room that hasn't felt the insecurity of losing a job or feeling the insecurity of whether the boss is just going to pick up and move your work to another location. The reality is, in the last few months, we've seen a lot of corporate greed. We've seen governments at municipal levels, provincial levels, federal levels try to change the consciousness of our country through privatization, allowing capital to move from one location to another location without the consequences being felt in the particular communities that are negatively affected. I can recall 4 or 5 months ago, I was in collective bargaining with electromotive workers in London, Ontario, Local 27. And brothers and sisters, obviously Electromotive was a multinational corporation subsidy of Caterpillar. Caterpillar, one of the most anti-union multinational corporations in the world, that day in and day out take on their workers regardless of what jurisdiction they're in, and they take great pride in destroying the hearts and minds of workers. And the employer locked us out shortly after the Christmas holiday periods. And I asked the labor movement to come together, not just in defense of free collective bargaining, but in defense of good manufacturing jobs. Jobs that provide for our families, jobs that provide for the community, jobs that allow people to send their kids to colleges and universities and be the person that they want to be, to fulfill the dream that all of us want for our children and our grandchildren. And then, brothers and sisters, when the boss seen the labor movement mobilizing, the boss said, we've got to end this lockout. And they decided to close the facility. But they decided to close the facility prior to the decision to lock out. We still have the information. We still have the recorded minutes of their executive board meeting where in June, prior to the Christmas holidays, they voted to outsource our work to Illinois. And why did they go to Illinois? Number one, because they can move capital from one workplace to another without any consequences in that particular community. But on top of that, as a result of the free trade agreements, as a result of NAFTA, as a result of the expansion, global capital can now move, and government says their hands are tied. Well, brothers and sisters, we've got to untie those hands on behalf of our combined membership if we're going to win justice for our members. Because the reality is, if a Canadian government can't stand up for Canadian workers and for the manufacturing industrial base in this country, then we are in serious trouble. The same with municipal, provincial, and federal governments. When they can't stand up to preserve good public services and good public jobs with decent wages and decent benefits, the system is broken, brothers and sisters. There's lots of people saying, hey, our economic system is not broke or is broke. Brothers and sisters, it isn't broke. It's designed to attack workers' rights. It's designed to make sure that the most vulnerable feel vulnerable consistently. It's designed to make sure that if you're employed, that you feel the invulnerability of possibly being unemployed. You see the unemployed today, and what bothers me the most out of the unemployed is the young people, our children, our grandchildren. 2 in 10 kids graduating out of college and university are getting a job. The other 8 are lucky to get precarious or contract work. In fact, the other 8, if you talk to those young people out there, and many of you have children out there, have to do voluntary work to gain experience just for an opportunity for a job. Brothers and sisters, that's not the country that the labor movement helped build. That's not the country that this labor movement advocated for years. So, brothers and sisters, I ask you, with as much sincerity as I possibly can, I, like you, have great respect for my union. In fact, when we left the UAW 29 years ago, an international union, there was a lot of apprehension. Were we making the right decision? Were we developing the right course? Were we moving forward in the interest of our members? And if one takes a look at the history of the CAW, and now the history of the CAW, that's made up of 45 merged units joining the CAW, we are a much stronger and dynamic union as a result of our diversity, as a result of our growth, as a result of our Canadian independence. But when you look 28 or 29 years later, and I ask the delegates in this room here today, do we wake up every morning feeling confident that we've got the tools to win justice against employers, to win justice against governments at all levels? Are we utilizing that toolbox to its maximum potential? And I would say, brothers and sisters, if you're honest with yourself, we need more tools in the toolbox in 2012. The toolbox of the past is not the one that's going to lead us into the future. So the reality, the idea of forming a new union with 300,000 members strong, with the potential of building pride, building confidence in those that want to join a union, and then giving those in society a voice. What's wrong with the unemployed joining our union and having an opportunity to speak about what it's like not to have a job or lose a job? Why is it that Ken Lewenza every month has got to stand up and speak for the unemployed, when in reality is the unemployed have a strong voice and they are entitled to speak for themselves, but we got to give them space in our union to allow them to do that. Share their stories, share their frustrations, share their expectations, and reach out to Canadians for the country that we all want to enjoy. If you take a look at all of the groups in society that feel insecure today, including us in the labor movement, brothers and sisters, I'd like to stand up and say that I have a great deal of confidence in us collectively to move that needle forward. And I believe that we can collectively build that confidence through this new union. Brothers and sisters, every sector of the economy, union and non-union, are being attacked by multinational corporations, are being attacked by business, are being attacked by the corporate community. And brothers and sisters, the corporate community is not sitting idly by. They are meeting continually. They're building coalition forces amongst themselves. Business and large corporations are sitting down talking about how they destroy the rights and privileges that we worked for and we fought for and we won through legislation at provincial and federal government levels. They are sitting down in a determined way on how you destroy the labor movement. And brothers and sisters, it's no secret today. Why are we getting together? Because the reality is there is union decline. The reality is there is a lack of union power today in comparison to 25 or 30 years ago. It's not a lack of our determination. It's because the other side is strategically thinking every day on how they could advance their causes. And what we have to do is think outside the box. We got to ask ourselves strategically, how do we build our movement? How do we build confidence in our membership? How do we win justice for our members? And then how does that justice apply to those that are unorganized in society? The labor movement plays a significant role. Ken Giorgetti spoke at our convention, and he reminded the delegates that a unionized worker makes on average $6 an hour more than a non-union worker. That's $6 an hour, the union way, in the pockets of those that are represented by unions and defend their families and defend their communities. On top of that, majority of unionized members have a pension plan, where a minority of those unionized workers do not have a pension plan. Majority of those that join a union have better working conditions than those that do not have a union. But for whatever reason, we're stuck at about 30% union density. With those kind of statistics, brothers and sisters, the reality is our union should be growing. Our union should have energy. There should be all kinds of people reaching out to the labor movement to improve their conditions and improve our collective conditions. Because if we fall into the minority constantly, we'll have less power moving forward. So, brothers and sisters, I want to leave you with this thought. And this is what fires me up every goddamn day. The reality is, if you watch the Kevin Leary and Amanda Lang show, before we went into the bargaining with the big three, obviously you get a lot of public attention in the auto industry. And obviously there's a lot of interest because of the kind of jobs and the spin-off jobs affecting the auto industry. And I want to say in advance to the delegates that are here, thank you for your overwhelming support in the last 4 or 5 months, because you can't take on the auto industry without the confidence that the labor movement will defend each other's backs, because it is about defending each other's backs at the other day. And Kevin O'Leary gets on the news and says, you know, a couple of years ago we had an opportunity to crush that CAW. We had an opportunity to kill them. We had an opportunity to make sure that they never represent workers again. And he said this publicly, brothers and sisters, and then he said we missed that opportunity. We missed that opportunity, even though I told everybody that they should take advantage of that opportunity and let the industry fall, and let the families fall, let the communities fall, because that's the market system. And then he made another comment. Now what you have to do is take those in unions in an alley and kill them, Brothers and sisters, if any one of you stood up and said, your CEO should be killed, your CEO belongs in jail, your CEO should be taken to an alley, immediately the cops will be at your door arresting you and putting you through 48 hours of psychiatric care. Brothers and sisters, this is the kind of attitude we have in Canada today. So, I conclude my remarks, and I ask us all to pull out your wallet for a minute. Because you know what happens in your wallet? You have all kinds of cards in there. Some of us way too many. Some of us outcharged to the limit. Some of us in debt right up to our butts. And those cards, quite frankly, provide the kind of standard of living we may want in terms of our spending power. But brothers and sisters, in my view, the most important card in my wallet, since I was 18 years old, raised in a trade union family under the UAW and CAW banner, has been my union card. Without my union card, brothers and sisters, without my union card, I would not have a home. I would not have a car. I would not be able to provide for my family. And brothers and sisters, it's with great pride that I say it's a CAW card. But behind that CAW card is a trade unionist card. And if all of us act like trade unionists, and if all of us are committed to our members, and if all of us fight for economic and social justice, this will be your card under a new Canadian Union. Thank you, brothers and sisters.